Gujarat's Saurashtra region has a water crisis built directly into its geography. With no reliable large-scale fresh water source and highly erratic monsoons, farmers here have spent decades dependent on unpredictable rain and rapidly depleting groundwater, drilling their wells deeper every year as the water table falls. This map of Gujarat shows the irony of the situation. Right across this map, immediately adjacent to these parched farms, major rivers like the Narmada, Mahi, and Sabarmati dump enormous volumes of precious fresh water directly into the ocean. The second that water hits the Gulf of Kambat, it mixes with salt water and is lost. The logic to fix this is simple: capture the fresh water before it reaches the sea. Proposed in 1975, the Kalpasar Project envisions a 60-kilometer dam straight across the ocean Gulf to physically seal off that arm of the Arabian Sea. For half a century, Saurashtra has existed in this paradox. Millions of people live on land dying of thirst, while billions of cubic meters of wasted fresh water flow into the tide right next door. This vector map of the Gulf of Kambat illustrates exactly why that dam stayed on paper for 50 years. The Gulf is funnel-shaped. It's 180 kilometers wide at the southern opening, but narrows sharply toward the north. That bottleneck forces the incoming ocean water to compress and surge upward, creating tides that rise and fall by up to 11 meters twice a day. Those tides generate ferocious currents that scour the seafloor and carry massive loads of silt every single day. Worse, the foundations of this proposed barrier sit in an active seismic zone. Any structure built here has to survive earthquakes while resting on constantly shifting marine sediment. The Gulf also lies directly in the path of Arabian Sea tropical cyclones. A major storm can stack destructive surges right on top of those already extreme 11-meter tides. And Gujarat knows exactly what happens when water infrastructure fails. In 1979, extreme monsoon flooding caused the Machu 2 Dam in Morbi to collapse, sending a wall of water into the town below and killing thousands. Kalpasar would hold back an arm of the sea, not a river. The combination of these natural forces and the catastrophic stakes of engineering failure kept the project on paper for 50 years. The political calculus shifted in May 2026. During a diplomatic visit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi signed a letter of intent that finally pushed Kalpasar out of the realm of theory and toward construction. To pull this off, India forged a technical cooperation agreement with the Netherlands. No nation has deeper expertise in coastal engineering and holding back the ocean than the Dutch. The Dutch proved this concept back in 1932. They built the Off-Sluit Dike, a 32-kilometer barrier that successfully sealed off a saltwater bay in the North Sea and converted it into a freshwater lake. India's strategy merges a century of European engineering with modern ambition, but they are taking the Dutch concept, doubling its length, and dropping it into a vastly more violent environment. This schematic highlights the blueprint scale. The plan calls for a 60-kilometer barrier built straight across the open sea, sealing the gap between the Saurashtra and South Gujarat peninsulas. By trapping the continuous river runoff behind this dam, accumulating freshwater slowly pushes out the trapped saltwater. The result is a 2,000-square-kilometer reservoir holding 8 billion cubic meters of water. That is enough to irrigate over 1 million hectares of farmland and supply drinking water to the entire region. It also functions as a transportation artery. The road link running atop the dam will cut the travel distance across the Gulf from 240 kilometers down to just 60. It provides water security, massive power generation, and regional connectivity, all addressed by this single structure. The price of that progress is high. The cost has risen to $14 billion. Damming the Gulf will block fish migration and rewrite the salinity levels of a productive marine ecosystem. There is also a chemical reality hidden in the water. Rivers like the Sabarmati and the Mahi are among the most industrially polluted in India. Trapping their flow means holding back the water along with decades of concentrated industrial waste. Then there is the mechanics of the transition. As the freshwater pushes out the saltwater, the displaced brine has to go somewhere. Venting it back into the Arabian Sea risks creating hypersaline dead zones. Mastering the ocean tides is only the first challenge. Holding back industrial runoff without destroying the broader coastal ecology is the true test of this design. India's water security is often tied to geography it doesn't control. Major rivers feeding the north originate in territory controlled by upstream nations, meaning headwaters are outside Indian jurisdiction. Kalpasar is a different model. It builds a massive reserve entirely within India's own borders. In an era where upstream nations can treat water as political leverage, having a reserve under total domestic control changes the strategic math for Gujarat's industrial and agricultural planning. For 50 years, the difficulty of this build kept it on paper. Moving toward construction requires a commitment to building in one of the most hostile marine environments on the planet. If successful, the project will be the first to convert an arm of the sea into a freshwater reservoir at this scale and against these specific tidal forces. After 50 years of waiting, India is finally deciding if it can hold back the ocean.